Welcome to Schmidt List, where we inspire and educate emerging leaders by bringing you conversations with the best experts and thought contributors in technology and design. Thank you for joining us today. Now let's listen in as your host, President at Foundry Kurt Schmidt, speaks with this episode's inspiring leaders.
Liz, how are you today? Where am I finding you today?
I'm great. Thank you, Kurt. I'm based in New York.
That's great. Tell me about the work you do.
I lead a global search, recruiting, and consulting firm, and also have a networking group that works to help connect both job seekers and businesses.
Well, recently, I did a show about what it's like for executives to be looking for new work versus the rest of the world. What's the biggest difference you find in your mid-manager level person versus an executive level person? What are the different challenges in their finding new work?
Yeah, great question. And so for an executive senior level, there's fewer jobs out there. That can be the challenge. For the hiring organization, less job level, VP level. Someone who's at the middle manager level, there's usually more of those types of roles out there. I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges. And at the senior level, oftentimes an organization will look internally before they go external.
Okay. Is there any difference with whether or not they are looking for something in a step up, right? So let's say maybe a company contacts you, Liz, and says, we're looking for a CEO or something, right? Have you seen any differences in the way people are looking?
That's a great question. I see more often, unfortunately, that businesses, employers that look for someone who's in that role now, currently, as opposed to someone, I call it hire for learnability. My role in what I do is to help guide and influence, hey, look at this person that could step up into this role and here's why. But I think that majority of businesses and employers, they want somebody who's had proof of doing that role, right? Regardless of any level, really.
It seems that if they're going to grow people, they seem more apt to do it from within their organization. Is that what you find as well?
For often than not, they will start internally. Internal mobility is huge, and then look external if they're not finding success to identify that person.
What's the advice that you would first give that person in terms of how to prepare their resumes, how to prepare the way that they talk about their work? What's some of the first advice that you would suggest for people that are looking maybe to, and I see this a lot. The reason why I bring it up is because I talk to a lot of people that are looking to move jobs to move up.
Yep. Yeah, I always say, I use this phrase, start doing the job before you have that title, whatever the title might be.
Yeah.
Anytime that you have an opportunity to have a project around what that more senior role might entail, whether it's internal, external, try to do that job as much as you can before you have that actual title. Titles can be convoluted anyway, as we know. And then I think that just network ties into that, networking to have someone that can think broadly and give you that chance. All it takes is one person, the power of the network, someone that knows you and says, yes, you could step up, but trying as much as you can to get experience in that, whatever skills you may not have today is super important.
Let's talk about networking a bit because it's a subject that's near and dear to me. Is there any differences between how you coach maybe an executive to do their networking? Is there any specific challenges that you see with executives when it comes to networking that maybe other people don't have, or do they have all the same problems everybody else does?
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. I would say in working with executives, have a strategy behind where you're networking. Networking can be a huge time zap unless you really are focused and laser focused on what your target is, right? You have to know. I get so many times people that ask me what they should do. And I'm like, I have no idea. What do you want to do? Number one, have a strategy, be laser focused. Number two, I've seen this a lot when somebody leaves a corporate job and they lose that identity of the company. Sometimes it's a mindset shift to put themselves out there and to create a network or reconnect because they haven't been out there hustling because they haven't really had a need to. They might have an internal network. So when they lose that identity, it is a mindset shift to get them to put themselves out there, share their story. Believe it or not, it's easy. It's easy for some, but for some, I've seen many struggle. So through my community and the support of many people, they can connect with people and build that confidence in what they do, because it's really a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say target or strategy, is it about how you network or who you network, or is it a mix of all of it? Is there, how do you prioritize those things?
Yeah, it's both. It would be both. So it's being super focused, as I was saying, on, say, the industry, right? What industry are you targeting? Find what your passion is, what you like to do, and then having a strategy behind who you're connecting with, making sure that with an organization, I always, there's a couple of categories, excuse me. One could be find someone who could be a mentor for you if it's pivoting, somebody who can mentor you and give you some guidance how to get to, if it's a totally new industry. Find influencers, someone in the organization that can help influence, because oftentimes many people can't. So you want to make sure you're speaking and developing relationship with the person that can help get your resume to the right person internally. So really a strategy and being laser focused. I know so many times the employer, even if they have an exact resume match on, sometimes guess what? They don't see the connection. Believe it or not, you would think they would. So being as laser focused on what you want to do next based on the background you've had.
Yeah. So what would you say to people? Because I've had people say this to me before, Liz, which is, I don't want to play all those politics types of games. I want them to hire me for the job I'll do. And I don't want to have to go in through a side door. I should just be able to walk in through the front door with my head held high and blah, blah, blah. So what do you say to people that maybe have that sort of that mindset about how to go about their job search?
Yeah. The side door is where it's at. Totally. When you look at some jobs that are posted and see, there may be 500 applicants, right? You want to get to the top of the pile. And again, as long as you have a strategy behind who you're connecting with internally or externally within that organization, the better the chances of getting the interview. That company, when they get a referred candidate, they already have a assurance that, okay, this person comes through this contact. So you already have an edge there, if you will. But going in the side door is always a better chance. So you can still go in the front door too, but the side door, always a better way to go.
Yeah. And I think some people get upset about the idea of having to do what they might view as extra work to get in the door or do the job. And what would you say to those people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, yes, it is a lot of extra work. It can be. But again, if you focus on those organizations that you really have a strong interest in, it's worth it. It may not be every single company, but if you break down, so to say maybe 25, but it might take a little bit more time, a little bit more networking, it will pay off in the end. But you may not want to do it with every single one. It's really probably impossible to do that. But just think again, what really resonates with you, what you want to do, where your passion is, and whether it's fashion, health and wellness, sustainability, whatever it might be. Just, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, again, there's a difference, right? Because the way I grew up in a very blue collar sort of family, and we had a very blue collar approach to how we went about our careers and our work. But now that a lot of us are more in knowledge work than physical labor or, like I said, construction or different things like that, a lot of knowledge work, or where it's really hard to, on a single sheet of paper, express all of your knowledge in terms of a resume. And that's where I feel like the resume more and more is becoming more of a formality. Now, not for the Fortune 500. Those people they're locked in. They're like, you got to have a 4-year degree. You got to check all these things through the ATS or the applicant tracking systems, for those who don't know what that is, before you even get in front of a human being, right? To your experience, Liz, what should be the things I focus on in terms of my resume? What should I have on there? What should I not have on there? Can it be more than one page?
Yeah. there's a certain format for that dreaded ATS, the black hole of no return that we unfortunately is not going away, Kurt. It's going to be here forever. And I'm sure we'll see some modifications to that. Keywords, of course, looking at the keywords in the job description. And then I always recommend to candidates as they apply to these jobs, to the ATS, take it a step further again. And those companies you're super interested in, follow up to let them know, hey, I applied for this position. I'd love to learn more about the culture of your organization. Try to get an informational interview that shows your interest, because sometimes people will take those calls and meetings. Sometimes they may not. They just, whatever, may not have the bandwidth, but try to do that. Keywords, 2 pages tops, no pictures. There is what we call an ATS ready format, which is a very actually boring resume that it has no graphs, no pictures, no diagrams, no picture, but it is built for the system, even though there's many variations of ATS systems. So I know some can be as sensitive, Kurt, and this happened as if you write out, say, Bachelor of Science versus B.S, it might auto reject, so they can be as sensitive. And of course, they're full of error. I've seen over the years where candidates have auto rejected and then they get a call for an interview, and you have to, work with.
Again, it's different out there than it's ever been. Do you think the pandemic has changed how job searching and recruiting works these days?
Yes, totally. I think we're going through a sort of revolution in how hiring is conducted and how candidates are actually still calling the shots today, even though we're seeing a lot of layoffs and uncertainty in the market. On a bigger picture, candidates are still able to decline offers at the 11th hour. They're still doing so. The candidate pipeline is not as strong as what it was prior to this pandemic. I think that it's become more of a two-way street, which it should be anyway, given the virtual world. People that have proven they need less management, so less hierarchy. Even though as a job seeker, we sometimes you don't feel that way. You feel like you're at the mercy of the employer, but it is a two-way street. And I think the dynamics of this whole workplace, how we work, how we communicate, it's going through an evolution. I really, truly think it is. I see it. I've never seen such a weird job market in my life. So I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. To your point, the changes that have happened, I think a lot of people they're still catching up to them, because we all tried to go back to business as usual, and companies are like, all right, everybody come back in the office. And we found that some things have irrevocably changed, right? They just are never going to be the same again, at least not till maybe a new generation comes along.
Yeah.
I think the dent has been made. With that, let's say you're talking to someone who's more of a mid-management level right now, and they're interested in maybe moving into a C-suite position, not right away, but maybe in the next 5 to 10 years. To your point about finding those opportunities to do the job before you get the job, what other things would you suggest for that person to be able to start getting ready for that? Is there other continuing education resources? You mentioned mentoring. What other sorts of things would you tell that person to start doing if you got them maybe 5-10 years earlier?
Yep. Yeah, there's certainly plenty of certifications, online learning, a lot of it it's free, a lot of resources, some are paid. Of course, you might have to make an investment. Any of those certifications or programs that you can add to your LinkedIn, your resume, can be super, super helpful in that regard. Is finding a mentor that could help guide you to get to that next level, to try to maybe get some work experience if possible. Towards that, let your existing manager, of course, know that what your goals are, make sure that they are helping you to get there. Yeah. Communicating that's always important. Mentoring, of course, as we mentioned. So I think this might sound very fundamental, but just having the confidence, honestly, to get there and even go for some of those jobs that might be a stretch. We read and hear about people that look at the jobs and they may not apply if they don't feel that, I haven't done that, or I don't know this. I always say, as long as you have, say, at least 6 or maybe 7 of what the skills are, go for it and apply and see if that you can get that interview right. There's no downside to doing that. I think I've seen more of a apprehension there, maybe with women, And keep in mind, the job description is you have to step outside the job description to really understand the scope of what it is. But go ahead and apply for some of those roles. Yeah.
There's only knowledge to be gained.
Yep, exactly.
So let's talk about, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, just saying, we're always learning and growing. And I think people, probably more women that don't apply if they don't check every box. I'm like, that's okay. Have the confidence to do that is my point.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to that point, we in America, we reached a major milestone last week. I don't know if you saw the news, but we finally have more women CEOs than CEOs named John for the first time ever.
Yeah.
The needle is moving, although a bit slower. Is there specific advice that you give women versus men as they're doing job searches? So one you called out specifically was don't worry about checking all the boxes. Is there other piece of advice that you give?
Yeah, I think oftentimes with women, especially, it's just giving them the nudge and having the confidence. In networking group, Aaronites, at one point, we did a session on somebody who wanted imposter syndrome and interesting discussion around that, and more often found women that just may feel like, oh, do I have all it requires, right, in this role? So it's really my role has been so far is just to encourage and really help nudge that person to go for it, right? Because it's oftentimes have the confidence. Obviously, don't apply if it's something really way out of the scope of what you do. But if you align with a lot of it, right, that's okay. Go ahead and do that. Just having the confidence. I know there's certain industry segments too that always look for diversity. And the unfortunate part is that I just don't always have the pipeline of candidates that are women and that fit that bill. So I think that the more we can help to empower women to go for these positions and to take that step up and to take that chance is always good to do.
Yeah, I think you called one thing there inadvertently, which is finding those support groups too and networking groups, because especially when it is a non-white male, having those support groups of people around you that can give you that nudge, but maybe help you with your confidence or be able to learn from other people in their journeys, I think can be really powerful too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's many that are out there and associations that might be specific to more, industry. So I think that the more we see that, the better.
For sure. Liz, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. We're going to have to do a part 2 because I've got a lot of questions. I got a lot of questions for you. So Liz, if I want to get in contact with you, if I want to work with you, where's a great place to find you? Where are you most active? Let me know.
Yeah. LinkedIn is a great way to find me. I'm pretty active there. My website, ebcassociates.net. My networking is linked to that website. Contact info is there. So yeah, one of those ways would be great.
Great. I will include all those links in the description. Liz, thanks again for taking the time to join me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Kurt. I appreciate being here.
We hope you join us for more conversations in the future with leading experts in technology and design. Please contact us at schmidt-list.com and foundrymakes.com for more information.